Welcome to Street Psychology Podcast. Today's guest is Alessandra Patriciello. She's a transformational coach. She takes a holistic approach. It's rooted in precision, neuroscience, quantum mechanics. Alessandra, did you want to go ahead and just start telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. It sounds so good when you say it out loud like that. And I love to think of these conversations as a dance. Like we are just about to have such a beautiful dance through words and through conversations and the way that we flow back and forth. And I just want to start off by saying that. And I'm looking forward to this dance. I am a registered nurse in training, so I really appreciate the understanding that I've developed of how the mind and the body works. And there's just so much that goes into how we all operate, and we all have minds and bodies. So I think the understanding is so important if anyone is living a life and knowing like the user manual to your car and how that works. And my approach has been informed about through through my lived experience and through health and wellness coaching and understanding just what is necessary for people to actually create shifts within their lives, and having that support and feeling seen and safe to change. And then, of course, it's their decision to grow is number one factor of them wanting to grow. So I'm super passionate about just helping people create desired shifts in their lives, whatever that may look like, whether it's understanding their emotions and how they can manage that, and or what choices they can be making to optimize the way that they experience the world and create lasting joy and feeling good in their body. And I really like everyone deserves to have incredible health because it is the foundation for how we experience every single moment in our life and how we show up.
Yeah, that was a big statement. The way you put it, you said everybody deserves to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that our environment is significant to whether or not that supports us experiencing optimal health. Because if you grow up in a city environment, for example, or somewhere that doesn't have really big grocery stores, and maybe it's a food desert and there's just fast food around you, and just what is the education that you gain, or what do your parents believe, how do they see health? Like there's so many factors. It's such an interplay of how we come to understand and view health. So it's I feel like everyone is dealt like a different set of cards of how they start their life, and having the awareness to how foundational just the physical health is, just to and like how that affects our mental and emotional health, because someone who is not sleeping and eating horribly is going to be a lot quicker to have not as great moods and less resilience in their ability to face different challenges.
Yeah, so you're you're a registered nurse in training right now. So when did you realize that you wanted to become a nurse?
My journey is the reason I became a nurse was not now why I feel I have become a nurse. So I was doing a business degree in Australia, and my intention for becoming a nurse was because I wanted to be able to stay in Australia. And now I see that my path had unfolded in the way it had because I was searching for this information of understanding my mind and my body. And yeah, I guess more context would be helpful there of just what my mental health journey has been.
Yeah,
Do you want me to get into that?
absolutely.
Okay. So 10 years ago, I was hospitalized and diagnosed bipolar, and this did not make sense to me at the time. I was so confused because I was a confident, fun, happy teenager, and I was 18 at the time that this had happened. And my grandparents have come from Italy, so the family story is one of kind of survival and struggle and resilience and just getting by. We're not sitting around talking about our thoughts and feelings. And me, the way that I operate, I'm someone that thinks and feels so deeply. So I didn't have that awareness and the tools and the support and the guidance to understanding and processing and regulating my emotions throughout my younger years. And I think a lot of people don't may not have access to that, which I think is just the foundation for setting up your resilience later on in life. I went through this experience and it was so invalidating because I had these authorities and my parents and and labeling me in a sense. And at the time that I was experiencing this, part of me had known there's a reason that this is happening. And it's not something that I would quite fully understand until 10 years later when I have come to deeply understand how our minds and bodies work and how to understand that from an outside higher perspective. And yeah, so I went through this very significantly challenging experience. And what I've come to learn is all that I had needed at that time was tools to regulate and process my emotions rather than feeling labeled and managed. That's why I've chosen transformational coaching, because rather than just managing, which is what psychiatrists do with giving prescribing medications, my goal is to help people address the root cause of who are you? Why did that happen? What's this anxiety, depression about? What are these emotions trying to tell you? I see them as just pieces of information telling us about what we're needing, or maybe we need a boundary, or yeah, there's so much that goes into it depending on who the client is, but it's a little bit about my journey.
Yeah. And your journey is, I feel like, is similar to a lot of other people's journey. Like I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier about it wasn't normalized in the community to acknowledge feelings and to talk about mental health. And there was not always a safe space for that. And what that did for you is you internalized a lot of emotions. You were confused. You knew you were feeling that something was off, but you couldn't name it at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we are feeling beings. We That's
Mhm.
how we navigate the world is from the way that we feel, and there's no running away from emotions. Every single moment of the day, you are experiencing something, a feeling, whether you're aware of it or not. And that emotional literacy is so vital to living a life that is m- just meaningful and fulfilling and peaceful and joyful, because otherwise we're just robotic. We're on autopilot, just going through the motions. Different people, like some of us are biologically, neurobiologically wired to feel more deeply, and others are more prone to be more logical. So that's like a big consideration too of like how is this person's hormonal profile influencing the way that they interpret the world and make meaning, because we all have such unique minds and we all have such unique tendencies to how we will create meaning from what we experience. And I think, yeah, it's very helpful to to have that understanding of how different we each are. And one person, what works for one person might not work for the other. Having that supportive space to feel really under is so deeply healing and supportive of that process to allow someone to just mature emotionally.
A good thing you mentioned is that everyone doesn't experience these emotions. They don't experience them the same. So while it might seem like someone's helping you by telling you their coping mechanism in your family, oh, just get over it or let it go, or things that might work for them, we would probably say it's probably not the best way of doing it, but what works for them could work. But the problem is when, let's say, you're feeling a certain way and that doesn't work for you, and then you're just lost again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, so your biggest thing is when you say transformational coach, holistic, right? When you say rooted in precision after that, I want to understand more of that, more of your method.
So I work with a company called Precision Health Alliance, and they have this tool, this AI that they've been developing the past 15 plus years before AI was a thing. And it uses reverse engineering AI to essentially takes a picture of you, and based off of this picture and measurements really is the best way to do it of what your body what your body is representing. There's so much information that can be learned from that to then tailor specifically to who you are. And what this app tells you from these measurements is how your mind works, what you need to thrive in environment sense, and what kind of food you should be having. And this changes as you change, as your phenotype, like your expression of where you're at physically, your body at that point in time. So the food will update and change as you heal and as you grow and just optimize your health. So that is a massive tool, and there's so much, it's evidence-based, so much science, 15, 16 different types of sciences that go into how this information is created. So that coupled with my the principles of that I operate of just everyone is so unique, and just understanding that the human body, it like we're designed to heal. We have the capacity to heal ourselves given the right conditions, given the right environment. So I have this belief that anybody that I'm working with is capable of, whether that's mental, emotional, or physical, or just trying to experience greater physical health, or just knowing that it is possible if someone is given the right space and the right tools and the right guidance, that no one is stuck, no one is limited to the stories that other people have told them about what's wrong with their mind or what's wrong with their body or having a certain disease. So that's just more of the epigenetics of understanding that our choices are actually what influence what genes are expressed, and the DNA that we have is just the blueprint. So although our parents may have experienced certain illnesses, it doesn't mean that we're going to get it. There's a whole field in science that tells us that everything is actually in it's all through our choices, our lifestyle choices, whether the sleep we're getting or not getting, how we're managing our stress, the environment we're living in, the food that we're choosing to put in our body, the movements that we're doing or not doing. And there's so many factors that are in our control. So my wish is to shift people to a place of empowerment to really be able to see that and know that and trust themselves to be able to make these changes and to just lead healthier, happier lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is without medication?
Yes, so I don't prescribe, but I think medication, depending on the individual, is it can be like a crutch. Like maybe you need it for at that point in time, but not necessarily forever. For example, someone who is hypertensive or diabetic, to stabilize them at that point in time, but then to help guide to just making better choices and the behavior changes. That's the biggest part. That's where the coaching really focuses on, is helping people change their behaviors, understanding how our habits work and understanding why we are reaching for the sugar and the bread. All, like, most of the time comes down to learning to regulate our emotions, because the way that we're wired in times of stress is like, "Oh, just eat sugary food because we need more energy at this point in time." But just my boss is yelling at me, like, I feel like a tiger is about to attack me.
It's a coping mechanism,
Mhm.
and it becomes natural, it's unhealthy. And you're saying regardless of how you grew up, the environment that you grew up in, uh, you can change your mind, your brain activity, the way it works. Is that what you're saying with the epigenetics?
Yes, definitely. Like, change and
Okay.
transformation and growth and healing is always possible. It is, the way I see it, it is simple, but it's not easy, because we have
Mhm.
mental and emotional patterns that are passed down and deeply ingrained into our subconscious mind, which, I mean, that is such a huge understanding too, because that drives 95% of the way we think, feel, and act, is
Mhm.
under our awareness, below our level of awareness.
Yeah, that's like you said, 99% almost, pretty much when you think of it. And it's not easy. So when you have clients come to you, what's the profile of most of these clients? Where are they in their transformational stage?
I am very quite new to creating this coaching business. I spent the past 9 months working at a testosterone replacement clinic, where it was like my training ground, in a sense, of understanding just the interplay and seeing it firsthand of how our biology, our psychology, our emotional state, and how all of these factors come to be, resulting in what we experience and how we experience things. The client that I have just worked with, it was more on the mind mechanics end of helping him to understand and shine a light on how he's been operating and what has been driving his choices, and just more about increasing self-awareness. So, I'm still flushing out who will resonate with my approach and who I am, and I feel like I have the capacity to guide anyone who's wanting to heal and wanting to make better choices. But to be honest, it's all so new. It's all unfolding, and I'm in the process still of gaining lots of education to incorporate into my approach. I'm going to be doing a yoga teacher training, and that's gonna be a big piece as well, just developing that somatic awareness of helping people reconnect to their bodies, because that is such a huge piece of just wisdom and intelligence that we have, of how we move through the world, and connecting them to their actual hunger cues, and how different places and different people that they're around, how that feels for them, and just releasing a lot of tension that can get stored in our body through movement, through breath, through verbal processing or journaling. So, I have a lot of tools in my toolkit, and depending on who's in front of me, it really that would determine my approach. It's very intuitive based, but also informed by a lot of evidence-based frameworks and practices.
So for you, who helped you get to the point of being able to recognize all of this and work on it within yourself?
I just completed a program called Mystery School, and that was run by the founder of Precision Health Alliance and the founder of Shay. He runs it's very spiritual, but also lots of science incorporated into it. So that was that was what allowed me to have the tools and the support and the guidance to actually understand who I am, unpack my past, and transmute that all into purpose. So
Hmm.
I'm very blessed and very grateful to have had the mentor that I had and what their mission is, which is to end chronic disease by 2050 by utilizing Shay and helping people to understand how unique that they are, and to just it's just such a incredibly hopeful tool for people who maybe something hasn't worked for them in the past and they're needing something that is personalized and tailored to them and who they are.
Chronic disease, that's a big one because the mind is connected to the body, and a lot of people don't realize how much you can make yourself feel better by thinking a certain way or worse. So, with you, you said you were diagnosed with bipolar. Is this what helped you get through that diagnosis?
No, because me being diagnosed bipolar, oh gosh, it's been so long, and that diagnosis never truly resonated with me. I didn't believe it. I just thought, "What are you guys talking about?" My personality, especially at the time, I was just very much, "I'll do what I want, and I know what I know," and I trusted my intuition. I was always pretty connected to just this inner knowing of just coming to my own conclusions. So I always was so fit and moved my body, and I knew that's what made me feel really good. And the coach I had in high school, he literally trained us like we were in the Olympics. I always had this understanding of how much our physical health influences our mental, emotional, and energetic health. For me, that was what allowed me to feel good and to remain healthy. Although my mental health and my mind and the beliefs I had for years were quite limiting. This past year of mystery school allowed me to essentially rewire my mind and reprogram my mind and to choose new beliefs, which has resulted in me experiencing the world in a very different way, in the way that I show up and relate to other people and relate to myself.
So, can you explain more about what changed for you?
This past year with the program,
Yeah, how your life has changed.
I had been in a relationship when I had met Matt, who ran the course, and I was driven pretty much my whole life by my ego and by external validation, just a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-love and a lack of belief in myself because of how limiting my experience was 10 years ago. It's like it prevented me, like, it covered up my light. It covered up the belief I had in myself. And now, over the course of the year, I've realigned with my purpose and my passions and my strengths and my locus of I engage with the world is much more centered rather than at swayed by other people's expectations or other people's perceptions. I am in a place now where the choices I make are driven by who I really am, what I really want, rather than unconsciously trying to gain validation or so it's like I've shifted from this ego mindset to one of unity and unconditional love for myself and for every single person that I interact with. So that's for me, that's how I would define my shifts and yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing because that's not easy to change that much about yourself. The way you see the world, it takes work.
Yeah, and I believe that is it's possible mostly through new experiences or through education and learning and logic. It's like those two are the quickest way to shift your belief systems and I've I feel very grateful because my mind has always been so curious and so open rather than fixed and rigid and stuck on seeing things one way. So just my wiring is there hasn't been much judgment. I used to judge myself a lot, which is why I would feel like I judged other people, but now once that is gone, it's like I accept everyone as they are and I understand that the choices that they're making or the way they're acting and behaving is usually just a coping safety mechanism for them trying to feel safe in a world that is there's a lot of lots of pain and fear and that understanding allows for compassion which changes the interaction which changes how people are showing up and I've learned firsthand that having that compassion and that understanding and that love, it is so powerful because of just it's like David Hawking's or I think that's who it is. But the book Power versus Force. It's so powerful just to be in a space of love and compassion rather than forcing something driven by pride or fear, anger, or trying to control. It's just shifts that
Yeah.
I've experienced.
Yeah. So, how do you feel things might have been different for you if you had have had the support you needed?
I don't even think that way because the way that I reflect on that experience, I'm so grateful to have experienced something that at the time like resulted in so much suffering because it's allowed me to develop the empathy and the understanding of humans and their emotions and I also have this perspective and belief that every single person is doing the best they can with what they know. So my parents were doing the best they could, the psychiatrists were doing the best they could. Everyone always is doing the best that they can, even if it might not feel that way at the time. But once you process and feel these painful emotions associated with different experiences and choose to rewrite the story, it changes everything. Because I could feel bitter or angry or resentful or thinking, oh, that happened to me and just been more in that victim mentality. But for me personally, I've chosen to rewrite the story and just to believe and know and feel that has happened for me. And it's propelled me into my passions and my purpose and my deep desire to just share this awareness with other people and to create a space for other people to feel very seen and heard and listened to and understood. And I know how profoundly powerful that space can be, especially in a world that there's so many people who are struggling with their mental health, and there's so much
Mhm.
misunderstanding.
Yeah, you said it didn't happen to you, it happened for you because you said it's happened for me. I want listeners to understand that it did not happen to you, it happened for you. You can choose to stay in that stuck mindset, or there are ways to move past it, right? You're not your past. You're who you can be who you want to be, but seeking the tools and the support like Alessandra has and like she offers now, the tools are out there, right? The stigma is still pretty heavy on mental health, but it's not just sitting in an office anymore. There's so many other ways to heal. And you're going the nursing route. I know you're a transformational coach too, but you feel that this is because you're like you're saying diabetes, this is chronic disease management, not just does this have any let's how am I trying to put this? So I understand the chronic disease, right? And you're working with the mind, changing that. So how much of this is related to mental health too?
I think it can be a bit of a vicious cycle because depending on what you believe, like your mental health or cognitive functions, how you think of things, how you make meaning of things, that can influence the choices you make that impact you physically. And then depending on where you're at physically, then influences how you feel. So, in terms of optimizing that, it's like I think it's really important for people to take a look at what they actually believe about themselves and their capacity to grow and change or whatever, because beliefs are not fixed. Our minds are not fixed. It's possible to choose to believe something, but that's another example of how awareness is the first step. So that is usually that's something that I think is really important in the beginning of coaching, just understanding what people believe and then guiding them to choosing more empowering belief. There's just so much that goes into why people choose what they choose, and understanding that driving force allows to changes. For example, someone who is a cop and they are super stressed out, and the way that they're managing that stress is by going home and drinking alcohol and eating sugary, comforting foods. Well, there's two factors. The stress is driving the behavior, and then the behavior is contributing to an environment, their body not able to feel 100%, which can then impact their mood, their low mood, and the more reactive and less intentional in how they respond. And they might just be reacting. It's like this vicious cycle that there's a lot that goes into the equation of how they're experiencing life.
Yeah. And the word quantum mechanics, it's a big word. People might not really understand it. So I'm wondering if you could share more about that.
Sure. So I'm not a quantum physicist by any means, but there's some principles here that I feel are very empowering and very expansive. And understanding a few of these concepts can help with a perspective shift. So it's a shift from Newtonian physics where there's more of, oh, what's the best way to explain it? So there's something called the observer effect, which is what I would encourage your listeners to go and research. And what this says is the act of observing reality influences the reality that is evoked. And there's lots of science of that goes into quantum, and quantum is just the fundamental level of things, and they now understand that when you look at things at this very subatomic fundamental level, it's actually all just energy vibrating at a specific frequency, and the matter that you see is actually just very dense energy. So, having this understanding of these scientific principles then can inform the way that you start to think about things of, oh, my mind can influence the reality I experience. Oh, what does that look like in practice? For me, I will set my day up and my morning up with having the intention to guide my focus, to guide where my mind goes, to guide where my attention is placed. And I choose to focus on things like love and gratitude and peace. So that would then influence what I experience. And there's something in our brain called the reticular activating system, which kind of works like an algorithm, the same way that you're on Instagram and you have your algorithm. So what you will experience in life day to day, your RAS, it highlights things based off of what you believe. So if you believe that the world is full of darkness and fear and pain and people are mean, your RAS will highlight that for you. That's what you're going to notice. That's where your attention will be. So having these understandings, it's, oh, okay, I can change my beliefs. I can change what I'm choosing to put my attention on and set the intention and be more intentional about what I want to experience moment to moment. It's a much more empowering, liberating way to move through the world. And
Mm.
especially when it comes to mental and emotional and physical health, and people were more likely to act in accordance to who we believe we are. So we all have a self-image of ourselves, and that is what will subconsciously be driving the choices that we make.
That's amazing news. You can control your day, your life, your thoughts, your feelings, how you experience the world. Because that's all we're trying to do. When we're having anxiety or something like that depression, right? It's because we're telling ourselves that we're scared, we're nervous about something, we things could go bad, we're thinking the worst. You, but if you reframe that, change the narrative, it's a beautiful day. It's going to be an amazing day. I'm going to help people today. Things like that. You're saying you're more likely to believe that and to act that way than to wake up and say, "Oh gosh, it's another day. It's probably going to be a crappy day at work today," or anything like that. That's what I'm thinking. Is that are those good examples?
Yes, exactly. And based off of all the neuroscience and the evidence, our brains are plastic and malleable, and it is possible to create new neural pathways. It takes a lot of effort and energy at first because you need to be aware of what neural pathways are firing right now, but it is completely possible to rewire that and to change that. It's We're not taking anyone's trauma or pain lightly. It's super personalized, and it pain is it's not always easy to experience, but I think what we both want anyone listening to this to take away, to have hope and to know it is possible to live a different life if you wish. Mental health professionals and psychiatrists and psychologists all are such a have such an important role in especially in acute settings and in stabilization. If there is something, if you have thoughts of hurting yourselves or I do believe medication is so important, but it doesn't have to be your story if you don't want it to be. Like, there's always an opportunity to continue evolving and growing. I think we are wired, our bodies and minds are wired for that. We're wired to be able to handle adversity and to just come out stronger on the other side of it. It's so worth it to do that because the joy and the love that is accessible on the other side of it, like there is definitely those lower emotions, but that's what allows you to really feel the other end of the spectrum. And I, for me, I like my challenging past, hospitalized, held down, injected, and just all of these so traumatic. I like that's like my greatest gift. Like I feel like that is what allows me to experience so much love and joy after having processed whatever pain it was. It's like I see pain as a portal to having a much more richer, deeper experience of life, and these traumatic experiences or whatever anyone is struggling with that they may not have chosen to experience, it's what allows you to completely like it like shatters your world, and it shatters everything you may think you know about yourself and those around you, and then it allows you to rebuild and to choose what you want to believe, how you want to show up, how you want to experience the world. So,
Yeah. Beautiful way of putting it. I'm just imagining so many different things. And I know we're getting close to the end here, but I just want to reiterate that having hope is one of the biggest determinants of how successful you are with overcoming the mental health challenges. So there is hope. That's one thing that I would want to say again. There is always hope. There is always hope. There is always hope. So, Alessandra, any closing final wrap ups that you want to say to listeners out there?
I would invite you to ask yourself, what are 3 things that you really love or you're super passionate about, or what lights you up, and then figure out a way of how you can do that or incorporate that into your day today and tomorrow and the next day and always.
Yeah, and I received that. So thank you so much today for coming on the show, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. So lovely to chat and to meet you and to hear more about your journey and what you're doing. And it's so important and it's so powerful. And yeah, thank you for being on your mission and the way that you're impacting everyone who listens. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how things unfold for you and your listeners.
Same. Thank you.